call them basic because they're limited in what they can do. If you don't have a lot of needs for fancy editing or anything like that, they might very well be all that you need. But if you do want to do anything more involved, then you would need to go beyond them. We have the more powerful and more complex apps. Usually, not always, but if you have an app that can do more things, it also means that you have to learn more in order to be able to use it. So you have to sort of decide what's the happy medium in terms of what you have to learn versus what you want to be able to do. Talk a little bit about photo storage. Even though the photos are digital, there's still certain precautions you want to take if you have photos that are important to you. Talk a little bit about how to best preserve them to make sure that you have them if something should go wrong. All right, so let's start with, we're going to talk a little bit about Mac and Windows. I happen to be running a Mac at the moment, and since for Zoom, I can't be working on two different computers. I'm going to do my demos on the Mac. Some of the software that I'm going to be showing also runs on Windows, or it is very similar to what runs on Windows. So if you see something and you end up getting one of those programs, it may not be exactly what you see tonight, but it's going to be pretty close. And I'm going to mention a number of programs for both platforms. So I am also going to turn off my video, and just so we can focus on, okay. So let's start with software. If you have a Mac, it's a program called Photos, and Windows actually has a program called Photos also. Let's take a look a little bit, and Mary, I meant to check this with you. Do you are you seeing a photo, or are you still seeing my screen? Did we lose Mary?
Right. Sorry, I'm just seeing your screen that says what comes with your Mac, Photos.
Yeah.
Okay. I will have to switch for a second in order. I thought I might.
Okay.
Share screen. I'll have to do this a few times. Now you're seeing a photo?
Yes, pretty kitty.
Okay. That is my cat. This is, I'll go back a little bit. This is the Photos app that comes with Macs. And it helps you to organize photos. You can see the way it's organized them by where they were taken and when they were taken. It also lets you do some basic editing. So if I wanted to do some editing, I click on the edit button. I've got some choices. I can change the lighting. I can change color. I can make it into a black and white, which in her case won't be too much of a difference. But there's different things here that you can play with. A lot of it you can just touch different things and look at it, experiment. You can, I don't know if you can see that it's changing. The intensity is changing. The colors are changing. A lot of this is similar to if you use Instagram or Facebook or some other app that lets you do photos. If she had red eyes, you could remove them. This lets you get into a little bit more sophisticated stuff. But this is the basic, these are the basic features that come with Photos. And I'm just going to close it up, and now I have a black and white photo. I'm going to turn her back into color again.
What does Retouch do?
Retouch would allow you to take certain parts of the image and get rid of them or cover them up. You see, it's sort of, it's gradually erasing parts of it. I don't know if you can see that there. But if there was something that was there that I didn't want to have there, I could use this, and I can change the size of it here, and gradually erase it from the photo. And most photo apps have something like this. They don't all get into a spinning cursor when you touch them, but that's the basic photos. Yeah, thank you for hanging up, computer.
While you're waiting for the spinning, can you tell us, Dan, which operating system you're using on your Mac, or what version of things you have there? Is it going to vary?
This is Mac OS 10.13, I believe, High Sierra. It is not the latest and greatest, but it's what I've been using, and works well for me. And I'm a person who, if I've got a setup that works well, I tend to stay with it until I can't use it anymore. So that's what I'm doing here.
I was also thinking that Retouch, you could probably take the black from your cat and make it so that she doesn't have as much white in between her nose.
Yes.
So that'd be funny things you can do with it.
There's lots of good stuff that you can do with this. And in fact, there's a whole thing now with fake photos and fake videos that people used to try to make people look like they're doing something that they aren't.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to the technology that we have here. Now I had to quit photos, and I'm going to try to open it again just to see. There we are. So I wanted to show you this one. This is what I don't know if any of you've heard of it, but this is what they used to call. Can you see this, Mary?
No, we haven't seen the picture yet.
I apologize. Share screen.
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. This is what we used to call a meeting, where people would gather in the same room without any screens between them, and they would talk about topics and share ideas. Mary, this may look familiar to you. This is one of the rooms at the library where we
It
taught
does.
the
It does.
ESL class.
I do remember those days when we were face to face.
Yeah. It's quaint to think about it now. Anyway, again, here the edit allows you to do all the various things that we looked at before. The levels I was working at here. Okay, not the edit. Anyway, that's the basic. There are filters, which you've seen in any of the little apps you have also. Give you certain looks that you want. Make it black and white. Here's the original. So you can play with this, and there's depending on what your needs are, this might be all you'd ever want. And if you have a Mac, you have it already. It does help you do the organizing part. Letting you do it by projects or places or people. You know, it can figure out some of that stuff based on information that comes from your camera when you bring photos in. Some of it you may have to add, like I would add Bella the cat, and anytime I wanted to find some pictures of her, I could just type in Bella and there they would be. All right, any questions on Mac Photos? All right. Let me go back here. And I'm going to have to share again. Reshare.
I was going to say the only thing I don't like about Mac Photos is when you get into a project, you can't just slide photos from one spot to another.
I'm not sure what you mean, but
Well, let's say you wanted photo 10 in the second position in the group.
Uh-huh.
You can't just drag it.
No, not easily. No.
No.
It has its ways of organizing things, and it's not that easy to change that. Here, you're seeing my screen, I hope, what comes with your Mac Photos.
Yes.
Okay, it's free, that's a plus. You can synchronize between your Mac and your iPhone and your iPad. If you want to set it up, you can take a picture and have it automatically be on your other devices, which is handy for editing, but also just for having an extra backup. It does help you keep photos organized, and that's a big deal. Although, as Joanne just pointed out, there are limitations with it. The minus would be it has limited editing abilities. Sorry, went a little bit too quick. So we saw there are some things you can do in the filters and all the rest of that, but if you really wanted to get into intricate types of editing or really precision type stuff, it's not going to be your best choice. Coming with your PC, it's also called Photos, and I'm not going to actually show you because again, I can't demo things from a PC here, but it's similar in how it works. It's also free. You can synchronize photos using the OneDrive software. Helps to keep your photos organized, and it has limited editing abilities. So they're very similar in addition to being named similarly. They're similar in what you can do with them. Okay. Now we'll talk a little bit about basic free software, and it's Google Photos. Photos seems to be the operative word here in terms of what they name them. It's a free basic app. If you have a Google account, you just connect to it. You get a certain amount of space for free for having it. I think it's up to 15 gigabytes, if I'm not mistaken. If you want to use more than that, if you want to store more than that, then you can start paying for the extra space. But it's the same thing. Google used to have Casa. Somebody was mentioning that earlier. It has some of the features of that. It has the basic photo editing, just like we saw with Mac Photos and talked about with Windows Photos. So again, all of these three are good if you have basic needs for organizing and doing some simple editing on photos. These will all meet your needs, and you can stop searching and be very happy with them. Okay. Now I'm going to switch my screen again, and if you just give me a second here, I will do that. Photoscape. Okay. With any luck, you should now be looking at a Mac app called Photoscape 10.
Yes.
This is an app that comes from the Mac App Store. It's what they call a freemium. That's F as in Frank, freemium app. You may have seen them on your phone. You get the basic app for free. If you want to add more features to it, then you pay for them. But it fits our definition of free because you can get this here. This is a picture of Bryce Canyon out in Utah. And you can use all of these features here. Let's see. Let's try to high dynamic range. You can try to make things a little more vivid or less vivid. Gives you nice feedback as you're looking at it. Vibrance, which tends to make some of the colors more intense. HDR, I don't know if any of you have seen that. It stands for high dynamic range. It generally, the way you usually accomplish it, you take 2 or 3 or 4 photos at different exposure settings. So some are lighter or some are darker than others. You take them from the same spot of the exact same image. Then you bring all 4 images in or 3 images in, and you click on HDR, and the software goes in and takes the best part of each one and combines them all, so that in theory you have a nice looking photo that has all of the parts exposed well. What this software is doing is trying to recreate that effect using only this one photo. So we'll take that off. Brighten, darkness. This has nice gauges that you pull, and you see the little in the middle, the timeout barber pole. Darken. Most of these are pretty basic as far as what it's called, is what it is. Vibrance, again, gives you colors a little more strongly. Clarity is basically focus, so you can have it be more focused, or in this case, too focused. It has a nice look of film, so you can sort of see what it would look like with different effects on it, as if it was shooting with different kinds of film. The ones down here are in the green. Okay. I knew there were some that, okay. You've got lots of them. I knew we'd hit this eventually. That's what I was looking for, the Pro version. If you want to use some of these filters or effects, eventually you're going to run into, well, we gave you some free stuff, but if you want to do more, you're going to have to pay. I believe it's $35 for this software, which is not an outrageous amount of money. But if you don't want to spend it, then you don't have to, if you can make good use of what's here and be happy with that. Okay, was there anything else I was going to show on this one? No. Any questions so far? Still got everybody here, and have we seen anything that anybody has said, gee, I wish you could do this, or wish you could do that, or we're not at that point yet, probably.
How do you do the collage on that, using that?
I don't know. Let's see. Well, for one thing, you pay for the Pro version. That little thing pops up. I guess you could have 2 or more photos, and here you would tell it to insert one photo, to insert another photo.
That's kind of a neat feature.
It is a neat feature, and let's see what I got here. picture of a fire truck. Well, it looks like I actually don't know how to use this collage because I never have. So, but it looks like you can get these basic shapes of putting multiple photos in. And then if you want to do a little more with them, here you've got all the pro ones to get more interesting shapes.
Yeah, that looks like fun, and I frequently do collages.
Oh, do you?
Yes, but it takes a lot of effort, you know, cutting, pasting,
Yeah.
inserting. Yes, that would be fun to try that.
Okay. This might be a good thing for you to do since it's free to, well, and you're on a Mac, right? I think you said
Yes,
you're on a Mac.
and $35 isn't bad if you want to use it quite frequently.
Right, right. So this might be, at the end, I'm going to show the links to all of the software that we're talking about. So it might be worth it to you to download it, the free version, excuse me, play with it a little bit. And then if it looks like something you would use, maybe get the pro version or just keep using the free version. Okay. So that is Photoscape 10. You get that at the Mac App Store, which you have. If you have a Mac, you have an app called the Mac App Store, and you would just search for Photoscape X or Photoscape 10. Oh, I got to remember not to do that. Okay. Now we're going to jump up in complexity here. And we're going to use a program called GIMP. GIMP stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program. It's a free program. It's what they call open source. And it actually runs on Mac and Windows. So whatever you got there, you can use. You can use this. Same photo. And if you want to see something, what it can offer, if you can see where my cursor is pointing, there's a lot of tools in this program. All kinds of tools to select, paintbrushes, alignment. I will tell you, if you're going to use this, it's a great program. I've used it a number of times. If you're going to use it, you're going to need to be prepared to spend some time learning, because the interface is not as clean as some of the other programs that you might see, but it also allows you to do so many things. So even a simple, here's a paintbrush. So I could draw little lines on there. And here, if you can see over on the left, I can make the brush thicker. I can change the way it looks. I can change the spacing. I can have it be a harder so that it covers more with the same click. So there's just so many things you can do with this. And I just did the undo to get rid of it. There's also pencil tool, similar kind of thing. I'm just scribbling just to show you what it can do. But obviously you'd want to be a little more creative and neat with it than I'm being. But GIMP is a wonderful tool. But again, if you decide you're going to use it, here's a perspective tool that lets you change how you look at it. I should have passed out Dramamine before we started here, but it's kind of neat to be able to do that. Just looking at some of the other tools.
Is there documentation someplace?
There's pretty good help files. Also, when you hold your mouse over any of the tools, I don't know if you can see that or not, but as I hold my cursor over the tools, a little window pops up, tells me what it's used for and how it works. But yes, there is documentation. It's what they call open source, as I said. So it's not maintained by a company. It's not like a Microsoft product or an Apple product where you'd get a nice, neat manual and all the rest of that stuff. But there is information available. And if you really want to spend some time and not spend any money on a good quality, it's comparable to Photoshop in a lot of ways. It just doesn't look as nice as Photoshop, and you need to spend a little more time learning it. But it's a great program to use. Let's see what else I can find here. And it's got an eraser tool like most of these do, so you can erase parts of things or all of things if you want. Okay, so that's GIMP. Any questions on GIMP? And as I said, this also runs on Windows. It looks just the same on Windows as it does on Mac. So you would go to the GIMP website and click on the one that fits your computer, and then you'd have all of this.
So Dan, are you able to remove that branch in the top right corner?
I can. Let me see if I've got, there is a clone tool here, but I'd rather use the one in the app coming up next, if you don't mind,
Sounds good.
because it works a little better.
And
Right, so that's GIMP.
is that app also, you can use it on your phone or computer or just the computer?
This is just on a computer, this particular one. It has so many features in it that it really requires the power and the space that you would get on a computer. There are some very good phone or iPad photo apps, and some of them that synchronize with their desktop versions. But this does not. This is just for Mac or Windows, either laptop or desktop. All right, your screen's going to go blank again because I'm remembering that happens now. Pixelmator and zoom. No. Okay. I will have this figured out by the time the class is over, when it will be too late, but what are you going to do? All right. Now for a change, here's a picture of Bryce. This is Pixelmator. Pixelmator has a free trial, and that's what we're looking at right now. It costs $30. And actually, of all of the apps that we're looking at in this category, this is my favorite, just because, not that it has all that many different features than the other ones we've looked at, but it has a nice interface. It's easy to use for the most part. You have these icons that are very clear, easy to use. I'm going to show you a couple of I'm going to do the cloning tool because Mary asked me to get rid of the branch. And so what I'm going to do, I'm using a cloning tool. I'm going to click there to establish where I want to clone from. And then I'm going to, it's not the neatest I've ever done, but I'll define a clone. And now we'll get rid of the branch.
Could you
Let me go back.
spell Pixelmator? Is it M-A-T?
Mator.
Oh.
Pixelmator.
Thank you.
Sure. Mary, I hope you're happy now. The branch is gone.
Yes, that looks great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. I would do a better job on it if it was for professional purposes, being printed somewhere or something. But there's some other neat tools here. There's a sharpen tool and a blur tool. I believe this is the blur tool. No, that's the red. Here we are. So if you look down here, about 2/3 of the way down, I'm actually making this blurrier. Now, in this case, I really wouldn't want to, but I'm just showing you the idea that you could make some things blurrier. Maybe you wanted something in the background to not stand out as much, so you would blur it a little bit, and therefore the foreground would be would stand out more. But it just has a nice interface. I like this tool also. It's called a warp tool, and you basically take it and drag it, and it kind of distorts what you're doing or warps it.
Where are the tools? I don't.
Yeah, the tools are in a separate window, and I think because of the way sharing works, unfortunately you can't see them. But they're in a little. Can you see them now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's not the way sharing works; it's the way Dan's working. Those are the little tools here. This is the warp tool that I'm using. Repair, magic eraser. What's the magic about it? You can have it do just certain colors. Now it's winter. It's a nice presentation. You hold your mouse over it and you get a little indication of what it is. You have the effects, and let me see if I can move this over here. You have layers. Can you see the layers in the effects browser?
Yes.
Okay.
So what is the purpose of the layers?
Layers are a very important part of photo editing if you're going to get into more intricate stuff. It's basically a way of putting other elements in, but not having to actually put them on the original photo. So for instance, here's an empty layer, and now I can, I don't know, type in some text. So there's text, and make it a little bigger. There's some text. Now, normally in Bryce Canyon, you wouldn't want text, but I'm just showing you what layers is, because here I can turn off this layer and I still have my original. So I can experiment, do things, add stuff, and by turning on and turning off the various layers, I can see what looks best. I just turned off the background layer. So layers give you a way to do things without having to actually modify the original image, and just add or take away as your mood strikes. So they're very handy for doing, whether it's illustrations. I think you were talking about collages. You might be able to use them just to, if you wanted to just work on one part of the collage, edit it without touching the other parts. You could put one on one layer, another part on another layer, and then just edit that without damaging anything else. They're not necessary in order to edit photos, but if you do want to get involved with more intricate work, they're really a big part. You won't find them in the basics like Mac photos or Windows photos. You will find them. I believe GIMP has them, and Pixelmator has them, as you can see. What I like about Pixelmator again is the layout. It's nice and clean. And I have no connection to Pixelmator. I won't make any money if you go and buy it. I happen to think that it's just very well done, very well designed. Whereas GIMP is much more powerful, but you really have to work your way through it to figure out all of the power and all the features that it has.
So Dan, let me get some feel from the crowd too. So an example I would say with layers, and maybe Dale or some other people have used layers. Maybe you could take clouds from another picture and layer it and put it on top at the very top of this above the word text. So you'd have a layer of clouds to make this, a significant sky. Or
Yes.
I think you could also maybe bring in a person and they're standing somewhere in the canyon.
Yes.
That's what you could
In
do with.
fact, one year I won't show it to you, but I have one photo of this shot, and I put big golden arches right here in the middle of it and a big M. So saying this is what will happen to our national parks one day. But I like your ideas better.
That's it. You don't want to get carried away.
No, and
Well,
hopefully it was just
how much is it?
Pixelmator has a free trial, which is what we're looking at now. It's $30 for the full version, and it's Mac only. So I know you're on a Mac, but for others who are thinking about it, it is Mac only.
Okay. Question also, if you, from the crowd, if you are doing all these changes and things, do you safeguard your original somewhere, or do you have suggestions for, how to keep track of your photos?
If I know I'm going to be involved in doing a lot of editing, I would do one of two things. I would either make a duplicate of my original and work on the duplicate for that very reason. Or actually what I would do is work with layers. So I would take the background layer here and make a copy of it. And then I would turn off the original background layer. Then I do all my editing and whatever. And then if I decide, you know what, it's not what I want, I get rid of the duplicate and I have my original. But either way, I always protect my original. I never assume that what I'm going to do is going to turn out well, or something happens to my computer or something like that. You always want to protect it, especially if it's an important image to you. Work on a copy of it. You can usually on the desktop or on the Finder, depending on which one you're using, you can just make a copy of it, duplicate, and then just open that and then do whatever you want and not have to worry about accidentally destroying the original.
Perfect.
Other questions? Okay, I did want to show another Windows app that's similar to this. It also it's a free version, so I'm going to have to stop my sharing again to go back to where I was. Share screen, and back to this, and okay, this Windows app, and I'm told it's pronounced Shampoo, just like it's written. It's actually a German company, so I have no idea how the name came about. But this is an app called iShampoo Photo Optimizer 2019. It's free. You go to their website and you put in your email address, and they let you download it. But it has some nice features on it. It looks nice, and I like this here, and I'll show you more about it in the middle, where it has on the left what your original looks like, and on the right, the changes that you're working with, what it will look like if you want to have it set up. So here, for instance, color correction, and I can't actually use this because these are just screenshots, but brightness, contrast, lightness, saturation, hue, gamma, all of the basic photo stuff that you would get in Photoshop Elements and others. You can crop it, resize it, rotate it. There are some filters in it for giving different kinds of looks. And here you can see I made the right side darker. So this is, I kind of like this, and I haven't seen this in that many other apps. You really get a sense of what it will look like if you put in the changes that you are planning. And if you decide not to, you just cancel it and go back. And then on the left here is what your photo will look like. So this is free. Like I said, you do have to sign up, and I signed up yesterday. I've already gotten about 4 emails telling me I should buy something, but you can unsubscribe from that, and it's just a small price to pay for getting free software. But I think of the ones I've seen in this category on Windows, this is the one that comes closest to Pixelmator or that type of app that has enough features in it, but also looks, it's not overly cluttered, and you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to just figure it out what it means. You hold your mouse over the tools, and a little window pops up, tells you what to use it for, and it's got some good features. So it's a pretty good package for the price, which is nothing.
So Dan, for a question from the group is, does this allow you to create layers?
I don't believe this does have layers. And unfortunately, I can't click on this because it's just a screenshot, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't believe it does. Otherwise, we would see this. And as I was using it in testing it, I didn't think to look, unfortunately, but there's nothing here that allows us to look at layers or turn layers on or off. I'm just sort of looking at some of the settings and other tools. If there were layers, it would have something here saying, here's how you look at layers. So I'm going to say no, it does not. Whoop. Okay. Other questions on that? Or anything? I'm going to talk now a little bit about storage of photos, and then just do a little wrap up. So we've looked at all the apps that I wanted to look at. So this is a good time. I know it's great you've been asking questions as we've been going along, and I like to work that way, because that way I'm sure you get answers that you want. Are there any questions on any of the apps? And on the last screen, I will show you the links or where you can get the apps. But are there any questions on the features or anything else that we looked at? And I will take that silence as either I've been disconnected or no. Okay, we'll take it as no.
So far, there's a no.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about photo storage. And what I mean by that is, what do you do with your photos after you've edited them and decided, yes, I want to keep these. I want 500 pictures of my cat, no matter what anyone says. What are you going to do with them? Backup is generally what you use. You want extra copies of your photos. You have cloud backup or local backup. Cloud backup is anything from OneDrive or Photos, and iCloud. There's Google Photos, there's Flickr, there's all kinds of services where you can store photos as photos, or you can also just store them on Carbonite or any one of the other backup services. Local backup is your hard drive and maybe a USB drive or a thumb drive, an extra hard drive. And the reason I mention it, this is the motto I go by. It's kind of long for a motto, but if you can't reshoot it, if you have something that's unique and there's no way you could recreate it, and you'd feel really bad if you lost it. You should always have at least 2 copies of it. And one of them should be in the cloud, and one of them can be anywhere, your house, your office, whatever. The reason I say that, sometimes people make 2 copies and put them in there next to their desk or whatever. If you ever had a fire or a flood or some kind of damage that you lost your computer, you probably would lose the local backups as well. So having one backup in the cloud and one local backup gives you some extra bit of security. And I'm not talking about all 500 pictures of your cat, but if you have photos of kids or grandkids or some special event you were at, again, something that you could not recreate, make the extra backup. It's worth it. You're talking to someone who once lost some important documents because didn't think he had to back them up, and that was a lot of years ago. And I've made backups ever since. So you don't want to get burned. Even though it's easy to take hundreds of photos, they're still just as important as the old paper photos if it's something that can't be replaced. So that's the end of my sermon. So here's what we talked about. Here are the apps we talked about. Mac and Windows Photos. I don't have to tell you where to get them, because if you have a Mac or a PC, they're already there. Google Photos, just go to Google and type in Photos, and if you have a Google account, you'll have Google Photos. Photoscape 10 on the Mac. That's at the Mac App Store, and that's the freemium one where you get it free, and if you want more features, you pay for it. GIMP, which is the large one that has all kinds of features, but it'll take you some time to learn it. And I'm not trying to discourage you from it. I just want you to understand what you're getting into. That's the address to get it. And Pixelmator, which we talked about as the Mac app, you get a free trial at that address. And then if you decide to pay for it, I believe it's $30. And the Shampoo Photo Optimizer 2019. Now, if you want, you can copy that whole URL, but you can do what I did, which is just type in Shampoo Photo Optimizer 2019 into Google, and it'll take you right to that page. And then you can download the free one for Windows. So with 6 minutes to spare, that pretty much is all I have, unless anyone has any questions, and please feel free. Here's your time to do it. Everyone gone home, Mary, or is just no questions?
Yeah, we're all still here, but no questions. Does anybody? Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't have a question necessarily about these. What will be the next segment about?
Next Monday, we're going to do some techniques in some of these apps. I'm going to pick 1 or 2 of them and actually work on things like the cloning tool that we looked at, and resizing and cropping and distorting perspective and those kinds of things. I'm going to get into some of the things that you might do with these apps for your photos. Also, we'll try to take requests. So if there's something people want to be able to do, we'll work on that. But it'll be more of a hands-on, here's how these apps work, as opposed to here's just a quick overview. But it's not going to be for all the apps, just 1 or 2. Most of what these apps do, whether they're Mac or Windows, the other apps do them as well. They present it a little differently, or it's a little easier to find. But if I were to demonstrate something on Pixelmator, you could also use Shampoo or GIMP and be able to do the same thing. It just, you'd have to figure out where to do it on there. But most of them don't really have many features that the other ones don't have. So it's just a matter of how they look and how easy they are to use. And features like layers, for example, that may be important to you. That's really how I would decide which one I wanted. And since all of these either are free or have a free trial, I would encourage you to play with all of them. Find the one that meets your needs the best, that does what you want, looks good, is easy to use, price is right. I don't think you go wrong with any of them.
All right, Dan, we do have a question in the queue. Can you mention the features available in Snapseed? Are you familiar with that mobile app?
Yeah, Snapseed is a mobile app. They have it for iPhone and Android. It's kind of beyond the scope here, but it has the basic. It has cropping. It has the different filters you can put on it. You can make it lighter or darker. You can make it sharper in focus. But it's designed mainly for doing something on your phone quickly, probably uploading it to Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or wherever you're, Facebook, whatever you're going to do. They're great. It's a great app for phones or iPads. I believe there's also a version for iPad and Windows tablets. But it's limited. Most of those types are limited because you have a smaller screen and you can't bring very, very large photos in. So the techniques are the same, the features are the same or similar, but you're not going to be able to work with the big photos that you might be taking with other cameras, and you don't have the benefit of seeing the big screen to be able to edit with it.
That's good. Another one that we use at the library, I haven't used it very much, but librarians are starting to use this. It's called Canva, Canva.
Yes.
So that might be another, that one's, you can use on
Yeah, that's
as
a
an app.
website. That's a website
Okay.
that you go to, and you create an account, and then you can work on that, and it's free. I didn't include that here, but yes, that is a very good one to work with. I personally like having an app on my computer, so I don't have to be connected to the web in order to work. But that's just me. Canva is a great app. Yeah, I would recommend you play with that.
Another question was, is there any of the apps or things you talked about tonight allow you to change the image size?
Yes, almost all of them, as far as I know, or all of them pretty much. If you mean by either by cropping or by actually making the whole image larger or smaller proportionately so that you keep the same aspect ratio. Yes, they all do that. I think even the ones on that come with your Mac or Windows. That's a standard feature that most, if not all, of apps of this type have. And they all let you save a new version or save a copy. You can save a copy of the one that you've edited and still keep your original. So that can be handy also.
All right. Thanks everybody for attending tonight and checking us out. There, you go ahead and look at the event calendar for other options or our YouTube channel to see the other virtual classes we've recorded. We will get this ready for you and email you so you have a link to this recording so you can go back to it. And if you're interested, which would be great if you could register for next Monday's class, and we can do this again next week. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good night,
thank
everyone.
you, Dan
Thanks.
and Mary.
Thanks,
Thank
Nikki. Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.